Classic Mercedes nostalgia lives in chrome. Engine sounds, and the kind of memories modern cars rarely awaken. The Mercedes Fintail era gave us the W110 190 DC, the W111 220 SE, and the W112 300 SE. They wore one familiar face, yet lived three completely different lives. This is the story of the W110 190 DC, the W111 220 SE, and the W112 300 SE. Same fins, very different bank accounts. One was the worker, one represented quiet success, and one arrived with air suspension, fuel injection, and the confidence of the future. But which one was the real Mercedes? And what was hiding beneath that familiar shape?
At first glance, this feels like the same Mercedes, arriving 3 times on an ordinary street. The same proud grille, the same upright roof, the same small fins catching the afternoon light. But look again. One car is carrying a tired taxi driver home after midnight. Another is waiting outside a hotel for a businessman who has finally made it. The third sits quietly at an embassy entrance, hiding air suspension and flagship engineering beneath familiar metal. Mercedes had done something almost mischievous. It gave 3 completely different worlds nearly the same face. Worker, executive, flagship separated by money, machinery and ambition. So which one are we actually looking at? And why did Mercedes make the differences so difficult to see? Before we go any further, let's untangle the alphabet soup. W110, W111 and W112 were Mercedes' internal factory codes. 190 DC, 220, SEB and 300 SE were the names buyers actually saw on the boot. So no, W110 was not a rival to the 190 DC. It was the family the 190 DC belonged to. Think of it as a surname and a first name. One tells you the bloodline, the other tells you who arrived at the door. Mercedes made this perfectly logical inside the factory and wonderfully confusing everywhere else. But once the names fall into place, the real question appears: why did 3 related cars live such completely different lives? The strange part is that Mercedes did not begin with the cheapest car or the most advanced one. It began in 1959 with the W111, the polished 6-cylinder centre of the family. Then, in 1961, the company pulled the same idea in 2 opposite directions. Downward came the simpler W110, built for economy, work, and people who valued endurance over ceremony. Upward came the W112, carrying more power, more chrome, and engineering that seemed to belong to a later decade. One body became a ladder. The middle car stood on the first rung, while one sibling went toward the taxi rank and the other toward the embassy gates. That was no accident. It was strategy. Mercedes could have made each version look completely different. Instead, it made wealth strangely discreet. From the windscreen backward, the cheaper W110 shared much of the same basic body shape with its more expensive relatives: the roofline, the doors, the broad glass, and those unmistakable fins. Imagine paying flagship money, polishing every strip of chrome, then parking beside a diesel taxi that appeared suspiciously related. For the ordinary buyer, this was brilliant. The affordable car still felt spacious, dignified, and unmistakably Mercedes. For the wealthy customer, it was more complicated. The difference was not always obvious from across the street. Mercedes had made class visible in the details, then hidden those details in plain sight. By 1959, tail fins had become symbols of optimism, speed, and a future that seemed to arrive every summer. American cars wore them like theatre costumes. Mercedes used them with restraint. The fins on the Fintail were smaller, sharper, almost disciplined, yet they still changed the car's entire character. They helped the driver judge the rear corners while parking. But their real power was emotional. A young man seeing one beneath city lights did not think about body engineering. He saw success moving past him. The grille looked serious, the roof looked formal, and those modest fins added just enough rebellion. Mercedes had borrowed a fashionable idea, removed the excess, and turned it into something unmistakably German: ambition wearing a well-tailored suit. Take away the boot badge, and the family resemblance becomes a small detective game. The W110-190DC usually gives itself away with its shorter nose, simpler front treatment, and more modest decoration. The W111-220 SEB looks longer, calmer, and more expensive, as though the same basic shape had learned better manners. Then comes the W112-300 SE, wearing extra chrome along its sides and wheel arches like jewellery chosen by an engineer. But even that clue is not perfect, because some buyers ordered less bright work. Mercedes made identification possible, then complicated it for sport. You must study proportions, lamps, trim, and stance. The differences are there, but they whisper. That subtlety is exactly what makes these cars so fascinating today. The fins made headlines, but the body beneath them carried the real revolution. Mercedes designed a strong passenger compartment with front and rear sections intended to absorb impact energy. That sounds ordinary now because modern cars inherited the idea. In 1959, it was a different way of thinking. Safety was no longer only about thick steel and a heavy bumper. It was about deciding which parts of the car should sacrifice themselves first. Inside, padded surfaces, recessed instruments, and improved door locks reduced danger around the occupants. The cleverest feature was invisible during an evening drive, and hopefully remained invisible forever. Mercedes sold elegance outside, but beneath the chrome, it was quietly teaching the industry that a car could lose metal and save people. The quickest way to understand this family is not through the grille, it is through the invoice. The 190DC was built for buyers counting fuel and working days. The 220 SEB asked for more money in exchange for refinement, speed, and confidence. The 300 SE climbed into another financial world, carrying equipment that made its familiar body almost deceptive. Production numbers told the same story, the diesel worker became common, the executive remained selective, and the flagship stayed rare. From across the street, they could appear closely related. Across a bank manager's desk, they were strangers. Mercedes created a hierarchy that did not shout through body shape. It revealed itself through engines, materials, technology, and the uncomfortable silence after someone asked the price. The 190DC was never meant to make a dramatic entrance. It was meant to start before sunrise. Its owners cared less about applause than fuel economy, durability, and confidence that tomorrow's journey would begin without argument. This was the Mercedes of taxi ranks, travelling salesman, family errands, and long working years. It moved slowly, but carried the dignity of a much more expensive machine. That was its quiet trick. The driver did not receive the fastest car in town, he received space, solidity, and the three-pointed star without pretending to live another person's life. The 190DC did not fail at being a flagship, it succeeded at being useful. And usefulness, repeated for hundreds of thousands of kilometres, became its own kind of prestige. 55 horsepower sounds almost comic today, but the 190DC never promised drama. Its 2-litre OM621 diesel delivered power slowly, through mechanical injection and a rhythm that felt more industrial than glamorous. Overtaking required distance, patience, and perhaps a little optimism. Yet that weakness was also part of the design's strength. The engine was not highly stressed, did not depend on delicate electronics, and rewarded owners who changed fluids, adjusted valves, and simply kept going. It could feel stubborn on a steep road, but equally stubborn when asked to die. This was not performance measured in seconds, it was confidence measured in winters, kilometres, and mornings when the key turned and the old diesel answered faithfully once again in winter. Open the door of the 190DC, and the surprise is not luxury, it is generosity. The cabin feels larger than the modest engine suggests, with broad glass, thin pillars, upright seating, and a boot designed for real luggage rather than weekend theatre. The dashboard is simple, the steering wheel thin, and the materials chosen to survive hands, coats, children, and years of daily use. Nothing inside is trying to impress you with decoration. Instead, everything seems to say, "You will understand me in 5 minutes." That clarity gave the cheapest Fintail an unusual dignity. It was not a stripped shell wearing a Mercedes badge. It was a proper car, carefully reduced, without making its occupants feel reduced with it. The 190DC's greatest achievement was not speed, elegance, or rarity. It was repetition. Mercedes built more than 200,000 examples, and in 1965, the company's 500,000th post-war diesel passenger car was a W110 diesel. That milestone explains why this slow saloon matters. It helped turn the diesel Mercedes from a specialist choice into a global symbol of endurance. Taxi drivers trusted it, families kept it, and mechanics learned its habits in cities far beyond Germany. The car did not create legends through one spectacular moment. It created them one ordinary journey at a time. Decades later, that may be its strongest emotional pull. Someone remembers hearing that clatter outside every morning, long before reliability became a marketing slogan. There is a cruel joke hidden beneath many surviving Fintails. The engine may be ready for another decade while the body disappears around it. Rust attacks places buyers rarely inspect rocker panels, floors, door bottoms, boot wells, window surrounds, and suspension mounting areas. A small bubble in the paint can be the visible edge of a much larger problem. Then age adds its list: tired kingpins, dry steering joints, cracked hoses, neglected brakes, and seals that stopped sealing years ago. The danger is buying the sound of a healthy diesel and assuming the rest of the car shares its strength. With a Fintail, the most important test often begins after the engine is switched off and the inspection lamp comes out. Between the honest simplicity of the 190DC and the technological ambition of the 300SE sat the 220 SEB, perhaps the sensible choice. It offered the presence buyers wanted, the performance the body deserved, and enough luxury to feel special without turning every repair into a financial event. This was the Fintail for someone who had succeeded but valued proportion. It could cross countries comfortably, arrive at a formal entrance without embarrassment, and remain mechanically understandable to a skilled specialist. The 220 SEB did not possess the worker's purity or the flagship's theatre. Its appeal came from balance. And balance is rarely the loudest quality in a showroom, but years later, it is often what owners appreciate most deeply. Let me tell you why I like the 220 SEB's engine. It finally gives this elegant body the voice and movement it deserves. The 2.2-litre M127 straight-six used mechanical fuel injection and produced 120 horsepower, not a wild figure today, but enough to transform the Fintail from patient transport into a confident long-distance car. The power arrived smoothly, without the diesel's hard clatter or hurried drama. Imagine a young owner in 1960 easing onto an open road, one hand resting lightly on the thin steering wheel, realizing the journey itself had become part of the reward. This engine did more than increase speed. It changed the mood inside the car, turning every departure into a quiet statement that life was moving forward. What fascinates me next is how Mercedes allowed the transmission to change the car's personality. The 220 SEB could be ordered with a 4-speed manual, the unusual Hydrac automatic clutch system, or Mercedes 4-speed automatic. The manual demanded involvement. Hydrac removed the clutch pedal without completely removing the act of shifting. The automatic offered the calm, almost effortless progress associated with modern luxury. Mercedes also improved the braking system during production, including front disc brakes and a divided hydraulic circuit. I like this chapter because it shows progress arriving in careful steps, not through one sudden miracle. The car did not wake up modern one morning. Mercedes kept refining it, correcting it, and quietly bringing tomorrow closer to the driver. Now let me show you the side of the 220 SE that I enjoy most, because the respectable saloon suddenly stopped behaving respectably. In the 1960 Monte Carlo Rally, 220 SE Fintails finished first, second and third, while another took fifth. These were not fragile showroom ornaments disguised as racing cars. Their production-related bodies, strong transmissions, fuel-injected six-cylinder engines, and durable construction were sent into snow, darkness, mountain roads, and exhaustion. That contrast is wonderful. Polished chrome outside a grand hotel one day, rally lamps cutting through winter the next. The result did not merely prove that the Mercedes was fast. It proved that elegance and endurance could occupy the same body, and that a formal luxury saloon could still return home covered in mud. What I love about the 220 SEB's luxury is that it never begs for attention. Mercedes added richer exterior detailing, but the car remained disciplined rather than over-decorated. Inside, the pleasure came from proportion, broad visibility, formal instruments, carefully arranged controls, comfortable seating, and the smooth six-cylinder working beyond the windscreen. Picture it outside a cinema in 1962. The driver does not rev the engine. The passenger does not hurry. The door closes, the doorman straightens his jacket, and everyone understands without being told. That is why I like this kind of luxury. It does not announce success through noise, enormous badges, or theatrical behaviour. It simply arrives, waits beneath the lights, and allows the surrounding world to notice it on its own. And now let me tell you the part I respect. Even though it is less romantic, an old 220 SEB only rewards the owner who finds the right mechanic. Its mechanical fuel injection can operate beautifully, but careless adjustment can quickly create confusion. Age introduces other problems: rust, worn steering and suspension joints, aging fuel hoses, oil smoke from tired valve components, transmission wear, and trim that may cost far more to restore than expected. The danger is not that the car is impossible to maintain. The danger is assuming every workshop understands it. I like this truth because it makes ownership feel like a relationship rather than a purchase. The Mercedes gives refinement, history, and character. In return, it asks for patience, knowledge, and someone willing to diagnose before replacing parts. The most surprising thing about the 300 SE is not that it looked expensive, it is that Mercedes hid so much beneath a shape people already knew. From a distance, it resembled the 220 SEB. Move closer, and the clues began to appear: brighter side trim, chrome around the wheel arches, and 300 SE badges near the rear pillars. Then, Mercedes stretched the wheelbase by 100mm for the long version, giving every extra millimetre to the rear passengers. Only 1,546 long wheelbase saloons were built. This was not simply another fintail with more decoration. It was a private room on wheels, disguised as a familiar family member until the rear door opened and the hierarchy became impossible to miss. Here is where the 300 SE stops feeling like a richer 220 and begins to feel like another species. Its 3-litre M189 straight-six used a light alloy block, making it roughly 40 kilograms lighter than the earlier design. It produced 160 horsepower at first, then 170 after the 1964 revisions to compression and fuel injection. Those numbers matter, but the feeling matters more. Imagine being 20 years old, hearing that smooth six-cylinder gather speed, while the chrome bonnet points toward an empty autobahn. The car was not frantic, it simply kept becoming faster, calmer, and more certain. Mercedes had taken the dignity of the fintail and given it the performance to make distant cities feel suddenly, irresistibly closer than ever before. And then comes the feature that sounds misplaced in time: air suspension in 1961. Not on a futuristic concept, but on a production Mercedes people could order. Air bellows replaced steel springs, allowing the 300 SE to combine comfort with controlled body height and confident road behaviour. A healthy system changed the way the car moved. Bumps seemed to pass beneath the cabin rather than through it. That is why this machine can pull an older viewer backward through time. He may remember the first time such a Mercedes floated past, silent and level, looking less like transportation than proof that the future had chosen a number plate. But every miracle creates a question: what happens when the air escapes? Air suspension was only the beginning. Mercedes also gave the W112, a 4-speed automatic, newly developed power steering, a dual-circuit braking system, and disc brakes on all four wheels. Read that list again, then remember the year 1961. These features did not exist merely to decorate a brochure. The automatic reduced effort, the steering gave a large saloon unexpected ease, and the divided braking system preserved braking ability if one circuit failed. This is where the 300 SE reveals its true character. It was not trying to be the grandest version of yesterday's Mercedes. It was collecting pieces of tomorrow beneath familiar fins, as though the engineers feared the world was not ready to see how modern it had become. But this is where admiration must become honesty. When a W112 is healthy, it rides with extraordinary calm. When its air system leaks, the car can slowly sink after being parked, as if the flagship is bowing under its own ambition. Repairing control valves, seals, bellows, lines, and neglected suspension components can consume time and money. The M189 engine brings another warning. It shares relatively few drivetrain parts with ordinary Mercedes models, and major work demands specialist knowledge. Missing chrome and tired wood can turn restoration into a financial trap. The cheapest 300 SE may therefore become the most expensive one. Its greatest technology did not make it immortal. It made proper maintenance part of the price of experiencing it. So which one was the real Mercedes? The answer depends on what you believe the three-pointed star should promise. The 190 DC was the worker, slow, economical, and prepared to earn respect one morning at a time. The 220 SEB was the balance, refined, capable, and luxurious without surrendering to complexity. The 300 SE was the dream, rare, advanced, and magnificent enough to make 1961 feel like tomorrow. At the beginning, these cars seemed to share one face. Now that face means three lives. Perhaps the real Mercedes was never one of them. Perhaps it was the idea connecting all three that engineering should give dignity to work, confidence to success, and courage to anyone willing to imagine the future.